The seven of us first board members kind of bonded together in this vision of conserving wildlands around here. But we also were speaking on behalf of a very strong community vision.
We use the expression of vision, but it's as much as anything, it's almost kind of a dream, you know, a hopeful dream.
My memory is, well, Doug Firstbrook, he had had his eye on what has become the Alder Creek Farm property, and I remember him taking several of us up on the hill, up on 13th Street, where you can look out over that property, and kind of waving his arms around, you know, and it was pretty exciting. It was a pretty cool opportunity.
We'd seen a continued expansion, growth in the area, and there were certain properties that we had thought should have been saved and protected that weren't. We couldn't get any larger, more established group to take seriously our concerns. So that kind of left us a choice. We could either just ignore it, or we could become active in pursuing and protecting. And we just chose the latter.
Property came available. Farmer was ready to retire, and he put it on the market. This was the land there between the Nehalem and Bayside Gardens. And it was a good size, 50-acre parcel. It had a stream coming through it, but didn't have any shade to speak of left on it. It had been diked up, so it couldn't flood very well. That had destroyed then some of the side channels and so on.
Hi guys.
Hey, Gareth.
Edges are really critical in terms of habitat, and so here's this property that borders the bay, and there's, you know, mud flats and intertidal organisms, and then it had the Alder Creek, which ran through it, which was a fish-bearing stream, so there was that kind of amazement, you know, like, yay, there are fish in this creek, you know. And it was a relatively large piece of property that had several different habitats available. It, you know, looked like once the dairy was removed, the cows and things would maybe start to regenerate, just allowing it to sort of spring back. We knew there was something more there than all that Scotch broom and blackberry.
Bob Pyle would tell you that there's beauty everywhere, even in a ditch.
Started with a meeting, so that was early 2002. We invited all and everyone to come and talk about what they saw was happening here, and specifically the possibility of a land trust. And after all those people came and went and said their piece and said what they were available for, there were, maybe you could say there were 7 of us left standing. We went forward.
So it was Gareth and Georgine Fordun, Tom Bender and I, Vivi Tallman, Doug and Judy Sorrell.
At that point, we weren't officially a land trust. We were just a group of people. So several of the members decided to secure the farm with their own money, and then we could really work on putting together the organization of the land trust and eventually getting the land trust in a place where we could apply for grants and actually purchase the property from those people who had invested in it, which is pretty much what happened.
We clicked, the 7 of us, and we enjoyed each other personally, socially, also in terms of this big task that we had taken on. It didn't take us long to make a decision to incorporate in the state of Oregon as LNCT. We each kicked in $50 and we incorporated on April 1st of 2002. And that was the beginning.
It was the right group of people, and we cared about each other deeply, and we went through a lot together on whether it was, dealing with manure or, finding cow bones or planting trees or all of that stuff. We had like 5-hour board meetings.
They were pretty long meetings. We like to give everybody a chance to say everything. That was the important part.
And we actually put the menus of the meal in our minutes. So that was kind of this very sweet bonding time around whatever food had been cooked that day.
And we always include the menu as part of the board minutes. You can look back on a lot of good food, as well as 4 and 5 hours of talking and deciding and thinking it through. And it was just an incredible experience.
There was a bit of serendipity involved. That property came along, it met a lot of our interest levels. We felt that we could get some better use environmentally out of it by doing some restoration work to allow it to become a wetland again, and at the same time provide some habitat for the various animals that lived in the community and were slowly being squeezed out by residential development.
Of the 7 of us on the board, 5 recused ourselves from the decision and bought the land together with the provision, the understanding that we would sell it to the trust for what we had paid for it.
And then from there, it was kind of an interesting time because the focus was really about sort of removing from the farm all the vestiges of it being a dairy, taking down tons of barbed wire fencing and cleaning up the buildings, tearing down the old farmhouse that was in complete disarray and leaning precariously.
We had a lot of work parties when we acquired the farm, and it was a mess. There was junk everywhere, and it was a lot of work to get. There was a whole falling down farmhouse that we thought at first, we could do something with it. No, it was falling down, and in the process of that first spring, it made itself very obvious. It had to come down. So, and we had a lot of hands to do that.
So I think it was in 2004 when we had that major planting of the both sides of Alder Creek. And that's been sort of mind-changing to see the shift in the habitat and to remember being there and to remember the different people who were doing that planting. I mean, we were well supervised and organized, but it was just people with shovels, and some of them have died, and that creek looks completely different.
But I'd like to also see more education and helping people experience and learn about the land and how to live with it, in it, on it, with it. And I don't see that the need for that changing. The world is changing. The climate is changing. And we're going to have to do our best to get things back into balance. There's plenty more to do.
People don't love something if they don't know it. It's pretty hard. To love things in the abstract is a pretty difficult challenge. I felt that the more people that could experience the natural world, the more they would love it, and the more that they loved it, the more they'd want to protect it. What we do now is really for the future.
This is the most important thing we can be doing, and it can't wait. It just can't wait. We can't go backwards.
Been a good 20 years.